We laugh. We cry. We learn. But really, what doesn't kill you makes you better at managing clients and everyone. I'm Morgan Friedman, and this is Client Horror Stories. Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of Client Horror Stories. Very excited to have the one and only Aleks Krylov with me today. How are you doing, Aleks?
I'm doing well. It's a privilege to be here. Thanks for, inviting me to join the show.
We had a great prep talk a few weeks ago, and I'm very excited to hear about your insane story. My calm tea is in hand, so with this calmness ready, tell us about the storm.
I am actually completely opposite. I'm drinking iced coffee, and this is not my first cup. So I might be coming across a little wired, but that's normally my state of being. Once I'm up, there's a lot of running around during the afternoon or during the morning and the afternoon, but it is what it is. Well, thank you again for inviting us as an organization to join and share the story. I think in retrospect, this was a great learning experience for us as an organization. And that's why I wanted to sort of have this perhaps a little bit of an academic discussion where, talk about some of this learning experience and internalize them better by talking about them. Obviously, we're going to keep the identities, confidential. And the sort of the essence and the crux of the story is last year in about October, November timeframe, we were contacted by a customer in Passaic County in New Jersey. We are operating stern gutters and roofing business in northern New Jersey. And the homeowner was a retired lady who had a small home, but she wanted to install gutter protection on her sort of single-story house. We priced the job to literally get it done, get it
perfect
secured. So there is very little kind of margin for returns, margin for error. And we, of course, landed the job because we were very competitive. So we completed the gutter guard installation sometime during the first week of November of 2024.
Okay.
And the reason I'm being so specific about the dates is because it took us very, very long time to arrive to a resolution. And that's why I want to get very, very clear around the dates from the very early on in the story. Great. And we came out, we completed the job. It just took sort of 5-6 hours to get this completed. We wrapped up, we left, and as a sort of normal operating procedure, we, before we come out and schedule the customers, we, collect the deposit. And once the job is complete, we, according to the terms and conditions that every single customer signs, we actually run their credit card to settle the outstanding balance, which we did. And literally within a few days, we are receiving initially an email and then, a series of phone calls. Hey, your technician created a lot of damage on my property. You guys, got to come out and fix it. In those instances, I ask all our team members, bring me on board into this conversation right away. I want to handle this type of customer complaints personally. So I got involved very early on, and ultimately the homeowner was raising a number of grievances, including us breaking a lamp on her patio. And she showed us the picture of, kind of loosely hanging lamp on her back porch. And she also showed us the pictures of like, look, there's a chipped paint underneath your gutters and underneath our gutters. And you guys did that while you were climbing up there. So I took that information in and went back to the tech who was doing the work, and he denied that this was the case. He was never doing a lot of work in the back porch area. He didn't have access to that area. And he also explained that, like, look, logically, I lean the ladders on the gutter. We use, various tools to protect the gutters from any damage that the ladders would cause. So there was just simply physically impossible for us to cause any chipped paint underneath the gutters because the ladder stabilizers, they go over it, they lean on the roof above the gutter. So it was like, there was something like just not kind of adding up regarding the sort of the request.
By the way, I want to make a quick comment on that. Great story.
Yeah.
I'm building up to see what happens. Something I've seen in my experience is it's incredible to me that the people who make up these lies to try to get an extra 10 cents so often don't do their research or think about it, so they make claims that are literally impossible, like in this case. And what I think is happening is the following. I think the people that just want to like make up lies so they can get some extra 10 cents from a contractor, they're basically looking for a shortcut to make some quick, easy money. And because it's someone that's looking for a quick shortcut, they're doing these shortcuts, so they're not thinking about how do I make my story credible and believable and strong, and they just make up literally impossible nonsense.
Yeah. I think there is a lot to it. And, we can kind of go into the psychology of what drives the people when they're initiating this type of claims and their character. But I think you're right. It happens more often than it should. And, we, since our inception service, we just recently sent out invoice number 1,000, so more than 1,000 customers. And we only had 2 sort of horror stories like this. So there is, I want to have faith in humanity, and the large majority of the people out there are, good, integrity, solid people with a great amount of conscientiousness. But of course, there are exceptions to this rule indeed. So in any case, continue with the story. We responded. I responded to the homeowner by saying, like, look, we will investigate further. I went back, reviewed the pictures that we had. Unfortunately, we did not have a lot of pictures from before state or during the installation state. So the logical arguments that I was laying out in terms of we could not have damaged your paint or we could not have damaged your lamp were just simply not landing anywhere. And about a week into this discussion, the homeowner discovered that we actually had charged her credit card for the balance of the installation. And the tone during that discussion turned significantly more aggressive, upset, and demanding too. So from the position that she had originally taken, which was, you guys got to come out, paint my gutters, and fix the lamp. And here is, by the way, the name of the paint and the brand of the lamp that I want and all that. So that came out in conversation very early, by the way. From that point on, after she realized that we actually charged her credit card, she started demanding full refund, complete refund, regardless of the fact that we had completed the installation and the gutter guards were already implemented on her gutters. It's not that easy to take off. It's like it's a permanent fixture of her property right now. So yeah, that was the new stance, new position, and I continued to maintain sort of these discussions. And at this point, we were already in the middle of December. So it's been like 4 or 5 weeks after we've been having this, dialogues. And at some point, I pointed out to the terms and conditions that they accepted when they hired us and paid the deposit, which, said that, look, we, as a contractor, will come out and fix whatever the issues with workmanship that you may have, but only after all reasonable sort of attempts to exhaust workmanship corrective efforts been exhausted, only then we can start having the conversation with respect to the refund. But in any case, at some point, they also started, the husband got involved. So this was a tripart kind of conversation between me, the husband, and the wife at the same time. The husband started insisting that when we come out, it must be a super senior installer, not just a regular installer come out to actually do the painting and the installation. They started insisting that this visit takes place on Saturday, which is not our regular work day, because the husband needs to be there and he's working regular hours, and therefore, he can only accommodate Saturdays. So it's been sort of dragging along. And ultimately, they pretty much, I kind of proposed, like, look, you don't need to be there. Here's the list of the, 4 or 5 items that you would like us to do. We will come to the property, we will execute on that, we will take before after pictures, you will have the comfort that the job is done. I pretty much conceded to everything that they wanted to do. I just kind of wanted to close this conflict out, resolve and move on. This was not a big project. This was just taking a lot of my time. There were other customers that I'd like to attend to. And I pretty much, it's like, it may be easier to just send the tech out there, get the job done that they're asking us to do, and maybe that will lead to the resolution. And then this is additional layer. So if complexity started emerging, like, need a senior person, need it a Saturday, I want to be there, you got to provide all the forms of insurance that we never cared about when we did the original installation. But now all of a sudden, this is all part of the request. And we were not able to accommodate briefly. And the holidays hit, and we were sort of at the end of January, and we were still not seeing sort of the light of the day. Then I'm seeing a request that came from our bank that a dispute on the charge was filed against us as an organization. And I was invited by the bank to submit kind of justification why their position in disputing the charge is not appropriate. Submitted the set of paperwork. Obviously, we'll pull the pictures, we'll pull the terms and conditions, everything else. And ultimately, 4 or 5 weeks later, we won that dispute on the credit card charge. And after that, they went silent. I nevertheless left the door open for us to come out and address this issue that they originally raised, the paint, the lamp, etc. And sometime in early April, so we are 6 months into this saga.
Now I see why the timeline was important.
Yeah.
It reappeared 6 months later.
The husband reached out and said, I'm giving you enough heads up. I will be home on Saturday, the week after the Memorial Day. So June 3rd, I think it was the date. Right. And I responded almost immediately, like, Bill, I cannot see, I don't have a visibility into what our schedule is going to be. Then, subject to further confirmation, we're going to put you on the calendar and we're going to take care of this. So, and we did. We ultimately came out. I bought the extra paint that they wanted me to. We, by the way, along the way, they actually dropped the demand to fix the lamp. So it was only just a matter of like painting the gutters. And we came out, we painted the gutters. We did some additional sort of tune-up work that they asked us to do while we were on site. And yes, I was happy to accommodate. So,
but by the way, as a footnote there, them dropping the demand to paint the lamp is more evidence that it was literally impossible, that it was your fault. They knew it was impossible, which is why they didn't push it.
I mean, look, I think at that point, 6 months into this dispute, I didn't care. I don't think, I just wanted them to kind of
go away.
Get to the point where they would acknowledge the fact that we did the work, they raised the issues, we fixed the concerns that they had, and that would pretty much kind of close the complete loop completely on us fulfilling obligations to them as a client. So we did all that. That visit went without any wrinkles. So on June 3rd, we finally closed that project that was supposed to get done on November 3rd, 2024, almost like 9 months prior. So that was the horror story. Again, during the initial complaints and concerns that they were raising, I was approaching this very emotionally because I felt like we're being taken advantage of. We obviously had, I want to say, yes, we had a poor documentation because this was one of the biggest things that I took away straight from that experience. It's like, we're going to start taking more pictures. We had loosey-goosey policy of, taking a few pictures before, taking pictures during and after. And after that, I became very insistent that every single team member, takes at least sort of 25, 30 pictures during the estimate phase, a lot of pictures during and a lot of pictures after the final product. And right now, our standard customer file is like 150, 200 pictures versus a dozen all in before that experience.
Right.
So we're much more rigorous in documenting the site before we arrive to it. And it has helped
So
us.
it's interesting. There's this like teenage online slang phrase, at least teenage 15 years ago or 10 years ago. Who knows about these Gen Zers today? Of FPF, photo for proof. Like people came, oh, I have a girlfriend in Canada. FPF, I won't believe it until I see
Yeah.
a photo of it. But it's interesting how in the real world, offline, that just snapping photos, which are so easy now that every human being has a camera, goes such a long way towards proving, well, the state of things before and after, what did or didn't happen.
Yeah. And it's amazing. And quite frankly, this policy in 99% of the cases is absolutely irrelevant to us. But again, we had another customer, as I said, out of thousands. This is the second case where the customer attempted to bring up some concerns in exchange for a haircut discount to the final price, and ultimately made a claim that we broke some pieces of fixtures on her property. And in my response to her was, well, look, during the initial estimate, I took some pictures, and look, this is from 6 weeks ago. That damage was already there even before we arrived on site. But it doesn't, in my sort of philosophy, this is, as long as this is our standard operating procedure, we take care of documenting pretty much what we do and where we operate. And it serves as a protection. We don't have to spend, extra time thinking about this. And hopefully we'll never need to use it. But in those rare occasions when we do, here, the documentation is there.
By the way, if I take off my client horror stories, how do you work professionally hat, and I put on my digital marketer hat, what I would say, what I'd also observe is what's really cool about a policy of always taking lots of photos is this gives you so much material for social media. So if you don't have it, you might also want to have a process to like sort through all these photos, take the best ones every week, every day on a regular basis, and then use that as like before after photos for your sort of work.
Yeah, this is a great observation. And literally about 2 months ago, we started doing this systemically. Before that, we were not, meaning taking the photos that we take as a regular course of
Yes.
business and putting them online as demos of what we do. Before that, we were just documenting stuff for the sake of documenting. But you're absolutely right. There is a side benefit
But
to that.
by the way, another, if I take off my digital marketer hat and I put on my client success hat, it's fun wearing lots of hats. It makes life more interesting and
Yeah.
fun. Wearing my client success hat, it might also be interesting to send the photos to them before the work. Oh, here's what we did before, and when it finishes, here's what we did after. And that might be interesting for a few reasons. First, for the 1% of clients that are really difficult, if they see from the first second that you have and you've shared and you're organized about the evidence of the things beforehand, it reduces the chance that they would want to file claims and cause the craziest. But another interesting aspect of doing that is, this is going to sound weird, but I have this instinct that by getting photos of before and after, it makes it feel more real, even though you don't get more real than physical work with your hands. But this sort of formality of, okay, here's like the post action report, here's all the photos, the documentation, is like, wow, this really happened. So it might make the clients like you even more.
This is very, very insightful conversation and observation that you are making. And, you know, I, at the risk of sounding like, oh, we're already doing that again, I want to say we're already doing that. And sort of, there are two elements of this that I actually want to take perhaps a step further. As a homeowner, unless you are, willing to climb 30, 40 feet in the air on the ladders, you normally don't have easy access to the gutters and observe what is actually going on inside. So as a homeowner, you normally look at the gutters from down up. So we do submit a, before after pictures and visual report on every single job that we do, just to give this extra insight and the comfort that we did the job properly and take the
Exactly.
shots from the top. There's another element that We have a in-house bonus system in place that in order for guys to get their bonuses, they need to produce pictures that the gutters have slope. The screws are in the appropriate place. There is a drip edge that is installed. So there is some internal procedural items that we would like the guys to actually do and document when they complete the job in order to qualify for the performance bonuses. That's sort of the second element, right? Give the comfort to the homeowners, internal controls. And then the third one, and this is something that we are yet to kind of roll out a little bit more aggressively, but my expectation is to do so in the coming weeks in the full gutter cleaning, is that here in New Jersey, we are in very close proximity to New York, and a lot of our clients, they reside in New Jersey, they work in New York, and they're literally commuters. So they spend their time in the city. They're not home to literally hold our hands and monitor the gutter cleaning that we do. But, we very much have started getting a lot of traction with select homeowners who love the fact that they don't have to be here, don't have to be home, and we can just come do the cleanings, and they're going to get this picture report of before and after. They have the comfort the job was completed. They have the confirmation that the job was done. This is, they know that they are paying for something that literally created value, that questioned it. And this whole element of just let us know when you once you got gutters cleaned, we're going to schedule, where you don't have to be around to sort of monitor the job. You can go free about your life. We still get the job done. You'll get that report. This element of the business, we want to capitalize a bit more on, because serving busy professionals in this particular area of New Jersey would give us the leg up to create more value for the homeowners, but also advance our business. So I think your observation, kind of taking it back to this whole notion of documenting and then presenting this to the homeowners, is a very neat way of continuing to maintain contact, if you will, with the customers. And perhaps let me make one more observations.
Sure.
When we do cleanings, we all, at the very end of the report, that photo report, we actually send about a page or a page and a half worth of various maintenance and gutter support recommendations, including the cadence, the frequency, when the gutters need to be cleaned. So again, there's just another reminder point, like, don't forget to clean your gutters, 3-4 times a year. And normally, people are not thinking that this is the frequency that you sort of need to, service your gutters. But this is an opportunity for us to emphasize that and look in the context of, look how messy your gutters were before we showed up, and look what is actually going on after we're done. If you don't sort of follow this cadence, the likelihood is you're going to find your gutters in the messy state, like in the before pictures right there. So it's very impactful to show those pictures of the before state, and obviously very impactful after we get the job done. So I'll take a pause here. I think I digress quite a bit on the picture side.
So, by the way, I love this digression because I have maybe 80, 85 client horror stories episodes now, and I try to always get at least one new lesson in every episode. It gets harder as time goes on, but I usually manage to find one. And the interesting issue that came up now that's never come up before is the following. Often we talk about documentation, and a handful of times documentation in the form of photos, but we had never really dived in until right now to the power of, well, as long as you're doing all this documentation, there are actually really good other uses of it. Like, as long as you're taking the pictures, you can make your clients even happier.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very powerful way of thinking. If you have these best practices to work professionally, what do you create as a consequence that can be reused?
Yes, indeed. I cannot agree with you more. And taking us back to that same story, I think, however negative at the moment that horror story was, I think in retrospect, there were quite a lot insightful learnings from that experience that I think helped us operate more efficiently, but also deliver much better customer service in sort of streamlining our operations, documenting our steps, and also giving customers more information about their own homes.
Yeah, I love that. I think a very powerful approach is to treat every problem as a learning opportunity, but not just in the, well, let's just hold hands and see how we can be nicer and better, but to say, how do we create or change processes as a result? And I think this is something that you did very well. You're like, okay, this disaster happened. Now let's have this rigorous photo policy, and it sounds
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and since we are sort of going through the takeaways, there were a few others as a
Please.
result that led to sort of internal adjustment of the operating procedures. Right now, it insists that, all our crews, like grab the customer before leaving the site, not just like don't disappear on the customer, like literally knock on the door once you've finished, walk them through the work that has been done, tell them that,
Great.
the digital photo report is coming, give them opportunity to ask any questions. I found this creates an extra step, both engagement wise, but also, if there are any concerns, you can
Right.
always, use that window as an opportunity to raise that concerns while the tech is still there, and perhaps some of the issues can be
But
corrected while on site.
and by the way, there's another reason why knocking on the door to talk to them for 5 minutes is a great strategy, which is, have you ever noticed this pattern that like really nice people, when they like go online and they're like anonymous online, they suddenly become assholes. And it's like when the other person on the other side is just random company, random bureaucracy, you're just dealing with bots online and automated systems. Like you have no hesitation. Humans just have no hesitation. Like whatever, charge back, dispute, be angry. It's just people become trolls when they're anonymous
Yeah.
online, but by putting a human face to it. Okay, this is a nice guy. He came over. He tried. It feels to me that you just become a lot less likely to cause problems as well.
Yes, there is some aspect to this, it's true. I think there are sort of shades of gray to this observation, but I think it's much harder, you are right, to be rude to a person when there is, name to the face connection versus just be a little bit more sort of kind of distant or perhaps even rude when there's just, a person online or a name on the screen and stuff like that.
Exactly. By the way, if you want to be even more cynical and intense about it, you like maybe you could improve the happiness and lower the chance of problems by not just having a walkthrough, but maybe there are like other details you could do around that. Like maybe you have the policy to like shake their hands, give them a hug. Where I don't know if you've ever read about how like TGIF or some of these big chain restaurants train their waiters, where it's often they just have these policies. You have to, like, when you take the order, bend down and look at them at eye level, because guess what? People tend to leave more tips and have higher customer satisfaction when the waiter is talking to them at eye level. And there's just zillions of these tiny little techniques to do to just make people have a better experience. It might be interesting to approach those last 5 minutes from that same sort of lens as well.
This is actually a very, very keen observation. I haven't thought of this angle, but I think it's very smart.
But by the
Ultimately,
way, I hold on. I just want parenthetical. I want to interrupt before you finish. When I had my two ideas before that were great, and you're like, "Yeah, I already thought of that one. I already thought of that one." I've been challenging myself to come up with a good idea for you guys that you hadn't previously thought of.
here you go.
So
Boom. Then we got to figure out how to incorporate it into our operations. I mean, I just wanted to acknowledge, yeah, this is correct. It's like ultimately we are in the client and the customer service business, right? This may not be as as the word that I'm looking for, I guess, face to face, intimate with a customer, because like, look, hi, hello, we're Stern Gutters. We're here to work on your roof and on your gutters. We'll talk to you when we're done. That's the extent of our sort of interaction with the customers, while on job site. So there is some obviously distance, sometimes elevation involved, but I don't think it's going to hurt. I don't think there is any downside to being extra personal when, wrapping the job up and, the creating and reinforcing the personal rapport. It's just like, look, this is going to be a little off tangent, but I remember during the COVID years, like all the service workers, right? Your Uber drivers or your food delivery people, it was all kind of, I remember being kind of served to the communities, like they're risking their life by providing this essential services because, the safer alternative would be to stay home. So that's correct. But I mean, translating that over to the roofing and the gutter operations that we perform, it's like our guys are heading, 20, 30 feet in the air, fixing their roof and the gutters. They're taking risk, in doing that to their safety and livelihood and their lives. So it's like personalizing, it's not just the bots that are out there on their roof, doing work, but real life people doing this work for the homeowners and just connecting that.
Absolutely.
I think this would go a long way to, to build on the relationship and also,
Absolutely.
increase customer sort of satisfaction that, it's not just it's not a conveyor type production where it's the robots that are doing work. No, there's a real life people who are going out of their way to deliver a custom solution to the homeowners. And in the meantime, they are putting their lives at risk by doing this. Yeah. I want to kind of close on that, but also share one more element that is not very personal. I like your personal recommendations, but, I guess where my personal bias is, what can we do in a more documented, regimented, sort of kind of hard elements in our operations to avoid this type of problems, this type of issues, versus I like very much that, building the personal rapport would help mitigate some of the situation as well. And by the way, my wife, when she obviously learned about this story, she shared like I should have been more empathetic to the homeowner when I was interacting with her, and like mea culpa, right? It just like I am not your fuzzy, soft, empathetic guy. I'm like, let's get stuff done, and that's sort of where my biases come out, and I'd rather kind of be operationally efficient as opposed to, let's do a hug and build a relationship from there. But the one thing that we did incorporate as a result of this experience was we are asking homeowners to actually give us the written sign off on the project, that they don't have any concerns or issues with our installation. They are not sort of seeing or acknowledging that there are no damage to their property that they have any issues with. And we have their signature that we just, once they sign, we document it, we upload it to our CRM system. It's a part of the record of servicing their home. So this was part of the operational adjustments that we did as a result of that experience.
These are a whole bunch of great process improvements. Avoiding these disasters and making clients love you, two sides of the same coin, is often not one big thing you do differently, but lots of little optimizations taken together. And I love what you've done, and also the ideas we've discussed here.
Yeah, indeed. So great learning experience from this all. And however emotionally charging that was early in the process, I'm kind of looking at this as a great learning experience. Very grateful that it has taken place. I wish we didn't have to go through this experience, but nevertheless, given all the lessons that we derived, that's probably that's even harder to let go from the story.
Yeah, I love it. Aleks, there have been so many great lessons, interesting conversation. This has been great, and it's been fun getting to know you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, and great to meet you, spend time with you, and I hope some of your listeners will derive some of the valuable lessons from our scars and bruises as well.
Hopefully. And for all you listeners, thank you for watching, and if you've made it to the end, we hope you've enjoyed it as much as we had. Until next time.
All right.